Ethan Mercer had always thought life would be ordinary. As a pilot and engineer in Earth's exploration fleet, he was used to long hours, star charts, and the occasional malfunctioning equipment. But nothing in his quiet, predictable career could have prepared him for the moment he found himself standing in front of the alien queen. It had started as a routine survey mission. Ethan's team was assigned to a planet far beyond the edge of mapped space, a world no human had ever seen. The USS Horizon had descended through thick clouds, revealing a forest that shimmered under a strange light. The air felt alive, vibrating with some energy Ethan couldn't explain. He remembered thinking it was beautiful, almost peaceful, before chaos erupted. The first encounter had been subtle. Small scout ships, almost invisible against the planet's twilight, circled the horizon. Ethan was in the forest below, checking environmental sensors. The birds, or whatever they were, stopped moving. The forest went silent. Then the alien scouts struck. They moved fast, like shadows with glowing eyes, capturing his team by surprise. The crew had no choice but to retreat, leaving Ethan alone and disoriented. Ethan ran through the dense undergrowth, his suit scraping against the thick vines. Every instinct screamed at him to keep moving, to find shelter. But in moments like these, instinct wasn't enough. He needed a plan. That was when he saw her. The alien queen was unlike anything he had imagined. She emerged from the glowing mist, her body immense and elegant, shimmering like living crystal. Her eyes glowed with intelligence and curiosity, and when she looked at him, Ethan felt as though she could see into his very thoughts. There was power in her presence, something commanding and gentle at the same time. He froze, unsure if she was friend or foe. But then she spoke. Her voice was soft, melodic, almost hypnotic. "Are you single, human?" The queen's expression did not change. It was impossible to read her emotion. Was she amused, curious, hungry? She extended a glowing appendage toward him, not threatening but deliberate. He felt compelled to follow. Each step he took was cautious, but something about her presence made him feel strangely safe. The queen led him to her palace, an enormous structure that seemed alive. The walls pulsed as if breathing, and the floors shimmered under his feet. Ethan couldn't understand how it was built or why it seemed organic. Every step made him more aware of his human limitations. He was small, fragile, and vulnerable. Yet he also noticed that the queen seemed fascinated by him, and that fascinated him in return. Inside the palace, Ethan saw the hive at work. The Xerans moved with synchronicity that defied human logic. They built, repaired, and communicated without speaking, their minds linked in ways humans could only imagine. And yet, for all their efficiency, there was a lack of creativity. Every movement was precise, predictable, controlled. Humans were chaotic in comparison, messy but free. Ethan felt a strange pride in that thought. The queen stopped at the center of the palace, and Ethan realized he was standing before a throne, or what humans would call one. She lowered herself, the glow from her body bathing him in light. He had no idea what would happen next. "You are unlike any I have seen," she said. "Humans are small and fragile, yet different. Your mind moves in ways my hive cannot predict." He wanted to speak, to say something intelligent, but all that came out was a nervous, I don't understand." He needed to survive, but he also needed to understand. He had spent years studying alien biology, but nothing in the books could have prepared him for this. "You are a part of something greater now," she continued. "The hive notices you, your actions, your thoughts, even your emotions. They are visible to us. They are unusual." His voice sounded small even to his own ears. "Creative, independent, bold, you do not follow the pattern, you challenge expectations. Walk with me." It is not a personal question in the sense you understand. It is a measure of potential. In my hive, alliances are vital. Pairings strengthen our kind. Your species, however, might be capable of forming something new, something I have not seen before. The queen's eyes glowed brighter. "Not yet. You are a curiosity. I must understand if your kind is worthy. Can your mind endure the challenges that await? Can your creativity survive our tests?" Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. He had faced impossible odds before, but never like this. Every instinct screamed that one wrong move could end his life. Yet there was another instinct, one he could not ignore, that told him humans had something the hive could not predict. "Then I will do my best," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. The queen observed him for a long moment, as if weighing his soul. Then she nodded slightly. "We shall see. For now, you remain with me. You will learn, and you will show me why your kind is different." He saw creatures communicating telepathically, constructing massive structures in silence and performing tasks with flawless precision. But he also saw the limitation of absolute order. There was no improvisation, no unpredictability, no creative spark. And then Ethan smiled quietly to himself. Humans had that spark. Chaos was not weakness, it was potential. He understood that survival here would require using that potential fully, to think differently, to move where the hive could not anticipate. By the time he was led to a chamber that would be his temporary quarters, he had begun to feel a strange connection to the Queen, not personal perhaps, but intellectual. He understood she saw something in him, something rare. Something that could change the way humans were viewed in the galaxy. As he lay in the glowing chamber, exhausted but alert, he thought about Earth, his team, and the mission. One thing was clear, he had survived the first encounter. But the real challenge was only beginning. Outside his chamber, the hive continued its work. The forest beyond the palace shimmered under the alien sun. And somewhere in the distance, the alien queen watched, her luminous eyes fixed on him, waiting for what he would do next. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing on him. He was small, fragile, and human. But he also understood something profound. Humans could survive, and sometimes that survival began with a single question asked by a being no one else would dare approach. And that question, "Are you single, human?" was the beginning of a story that would not only define his life but could redefine humanity's place in the stars. For the first time, Ethan felt something he had never felt before, potential. He smiled faintly, ready to meet whatever trials awaited. The Queen had not just asked a question, she had issued a challenge. And Ethan Mercer, human and unpredictable, intended to rise to it. Ethan woke to the soft hum of the palace. The walls pulsed gently, as if breathing with a life of their own. He stretched, feeling the stiffness of sleep in his muscles, and sat up on the smooth, glowing surface that served as his bed. For a moment, he allowed himself to remember what had brought him here: the forest, the scouts, the terrifying brilliance of the alien queen. The memory made his pulse quicken, but also sharpened his mind. He knew that surviving this encounter would require more than caution. It would require observation, understanding, and creativity. Humans had survived countless challenges on Earth through unpredictability, and he intended to use that same unpredictability here, in a place ruled by order, precision, and logic beyond his full comprehension. The door, or whatever served as one, shifted seamlessly into the wall, and the Queen's voice resonated in the chamber before she appeared. "Rise, human. It is time to learn. You are a rare specimen. Curiosity and observation are not punishable in your kind, and that is unusual." Alien workers moved with perfect coordination, carrying objects that seemed impossibly large or delicate, their every action synchronized, almost ritualistic. "Watch carefully," the Queen said. "Every movement has purpose, every thought is connected, but note the gaps. The gaps are where your kind thrives." There was precision, yes, but no improvisation, no creativity. Humans were chaotic, messy, emotional, and that chaos could be a weapon. The Queen led him to a large observation chamber overlooking a section of the hive's living quarters. Ethan could see thousands of Xyrans moving in perfect synchrony. Their bioforms were fluid, changing slightly as needed, but every individual seemed aware of the others, connected in ways humans could not imagine. "See what your kind lacks," the Queen said. "Coordination, connection, obedience, but also see what your kind offers: flexibility, adaptability, creativity. These are unexpected tools." He wanted to ask questions, to learn more, but he knew patience would serve him better. In a hive like this, impulsive actions could be deadly. As he observed, a small incident caught his eye. A young Xyran worker miscalculated the placement of a component in the structure they were building. The error was minor, but in the hive, minor errors could escalate quickly. He expected correction, reprimand, maybe even punishment, but nothing happened. The worker froze, unsure, and then Ethan saw something remarkable. Another Xyran approached, subtly adjusting the misaligned piece without disrupting the flow of the hive. The Queen's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Do you see it, human? Even in perfect order, there are cracks. The hive will notice, but it will not understand. This is your advantage. Creativity exists where rules fail. Observation alone is not enough. You must engage, interact. How your mind works when it must solve problems." Carefully, deliberately, he used the tool in a way the Xyrans had never used it before, reinforcing the structure while adding a flexible joint that could adapt to shifting conditions. It worked perfectly. The apprentice tilted its head, confused but compliant, and completed the task alongside him. The Queen observed silently. Clever, she said finally. Not the best solution, perhaps, but innovative. You improvise, you adapt, you survive. This is why you are here. The hive valued conformity above all else, and his success here was more than a personal victory. It was a demonstration that humans could offer something new, something the Xerans could not replicate. Over the next hours, Ethan continued to learn. The Queen introduced him to various aspects of the hive: communication methods, resource management, and the subtle, almost invisible ways decisions were made. He realized that the Xerans were brilliant at efficiency but limited in vision. They could execute perfectly, but they could not predict novelty, deviation, or emotional insight. Humans thrived in those spaces. As he worked, he began to notice subtle tests from the Queen. She would place obstacles in his path, tasks that seemed simple but required lateral thinking, or challenges where the solution was not immediately clear. Each time, Ethan found a way, sometimes by improvising, sometimes by observing patterns others overlooked. "You are persistent," the Queen noted during one such trial. "Humans value individuality too much, yet it serves you well here. I underestimated your species. Perhaps there is potential beyond what I imagined." But despite the weight of her attention, Ethan felt a strange sense of exhilaration. He was small, yes, fragile, yes, but he had something powerful the hive did not: the ability to think differently. And thinking differently, he realized, was more valuable than strength or numbers. That night, when he returned to his chamber, Ethan sat quietly and reflected on the day. He had survived his first series of challenges. He had learned more about the hive than any human observer could hope to glean, and he had discovered that humans were not inferior. They were different in ways that could change the balance between species. Sleep came fitfully. Dreams of glowing forests, synchronized movements, and the Queen's luminous eyes haunted him. But even in dreams, he felt a spark of confidence. He could survive this. More than that, he could thrive. The next morning, he was led to a new area of the hive, the archives. Here, history was not written in books, but encoded in organic structures that pulsed with light. The Queen gestured for him to study them. "Learn," she said. "Understand the past, human. Knowledge is power, but comprehension is freedom. You must see where your kind fits into the greater design." Moments where improvisation, creativity, or independent thought could have saved more lives, improved structures, or avoided mistakes. "I see it," he said aloud. "Your hive is amazing but rigid. There are limits you cannot surpass without change. Your species may have the ability to guide change. You are unpredictable yet capable, bold yet thoughtful. This combination is rare." Each discovery reinforced a single truth. Humans were underestimated not because they lacked ability, but because they did not fit the predictable patterns others expected. By the time evening came, Ethan felt exhaustion weighing him down. Yet he also felt purpose. He was not merely a visitor or a prisoner. He was a participant in something larger, something that could define the future of human-alien relations. Before he returned to his chamber, the Queen spoke again. "Tomorrow, you will face more direct challenges. Do not fear them. Fear is not weakness, but awareness. Your kind's ability to perceive danger and act is admirable. Use it." He was learning, adapting, and surviving. But more importantly, he was beginning to understand why he had been brought here. The Queen's question, odd, personal, and yet profoundly significant, was not just curiosity. It was the beginning of a test of humanity's value in a universe that had never truly recognized it. As the doors to his chamber sealed behind him, Ethan took a deep breath. The hive was immense, the Queen was powerful, and the path ahead was uncertain. But for the first time since being captured, he felt confident in one truth: humans had something the Xerans did not, and it could change everything. And with that thought, he prepared for the trials that would define not only his life but the future of humanity among the stars. Ethan woke to a soft glow filling the chamber. The palace seemed alive, as though it sensed the anticipation of the day ahead. He remembered the Queen's words from the night before. "Tomorrow, you will face more direct challenges. Do not fear them." Fear was impossible to ignore, but it had been replaced by something stronger: determination. He had learned about the hive, understood its rhythms, and glimpsed its limitations. Now it was time to prove that humans could do more than survive. They could excel where others could not. The door of his chamber shifted silently, and the Queen's presence appeared in the doorway. "Human," she said, her voice calm but carrying weight, "today you will be tested. Not by observation, but by action. Your mind, your courage, your creativity will be judged. The hive watches." Zirin apprentices paused and watched him curiously, whispering, or perhaps thinking, among themselves. The queen did not explain the trials, leaving him to face the unknown. That uncertainty was part of the challenge, and Ethan felt it sharpen his senses. They reached a large arena, its floor shimmering and translucent. Structures of biometal and glowing crystal twisted across the space, forming a labyrinth. At the center stood a massive console, intricate and alien. Around the perimeter, hundreds of Zirans observed in perfect synchrony, their bodies vibrating slightly in anticipation. Ethan swallowed hard. This was no ordinary test. "You will navigate the labyrinth," the queen said, "and reach the console. It is more than a task of skill, it is a task of thought. Each step you take will be observed. Each choice you make will be noted. Fail, and your usefulness is questioned. Succeed, and you demonstrate the value of your kind." He had no frame of reference, no certainty of rules, and an audience whose expectations he could barely understand. And yet the potential to succeed, if he thought differently, was real. He stepped into the labyrinth. The moment his feet touched the glowing floor, subtle shifts occurred. Paths rearranged themselves, walls expanded and contracted. It was a test not just of observation, but of adaptability. One false step, and he might be trapped or delayed. Ethan's mind raced, cataloging possibilities, noting patterns, and searching for anomalies. The first obstacle was simple in appearance, a wall of glowing strands, each vibrating slightly. As he approached, the strands reacted, forming a denser barrier in response to movement. Ethan noticed a rhythm in the vibration, slightly uneven, almost like a heartbeat. He took a deep breath, stepped lightly, and moved in sync with the rhythm. The strands parted just enough to let him pass. A ripple of acknowledgement traveled through the observers. Ethan felt a flicker of satisfaction. The queen's eyes glowed brighter, as if noticing his solution. The next challenge was a series of suspended platforms above a void. Each platform was unstable, tilting with weight, and the gaps between them seemed impossible to cross. Ethan analyzed the surfaces. He realized that the platform's instability followed predictable patterns, repeating with a slight delay. Timing was key. He leaped from one to the next, adjusting midair to account for tilt, and reached the opposite side. The audience hummed with approval, or perhaps curiosity. Ethan could not tell. The queen remained impassive, observing each action. The final obstacle before the console was the most complex. A puzzle of energy flows, streams of glowing liquid that shifted and intertwined, forming patterns that changed constantly. At first, Ethan was paralyzed. His human mind struggled to comprehend the alien logic. But then he remembered something vital. The hive was predictable in its precision, but limited in creativity. He did not need to follow the same path the Zirans would. He needed to think differently. He crouched, studying the streams, and noticed subtle variations in speed and angle. Using a small device from his suit, he diverted one stream to create a feedback loop. The pattern shifted in response, opening a pathway through the maze of energy. He moved quickly, adjusting on the fly until he reached the console. The console responded to his touch. Symbols shifted, lights pulsed, and a harmonic tone echoed across the arena. The hive's observers vibrated in unison, registering his success. The queen's glow intensified, and for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of pride mixed with relief. He had not just survived, he had succeeded. "You have done well," the queen said. "But this is only the beginning. Your ingenuity is recognized, but your courage and judgment will be tested further." He had to think fast. Ethan scanned the shifting maze. One path led directly to a dead end, another was longer but appeared safer, and a third was narrow, filled with obstacles that required precise timing. His mind weighed options, calculating risks against potential rewards. He chose the narrow path. The obstacles were tricky, swinging panels, sudden gaps, and glowing barriers. Each move required split-second judgment. Ethan focused, relying on instinct and observation, and moved through the path, careful but deliberate. As he emerged, the queen's presence enveloped him. "Impressive," she said. "You choose not the easiest path nor the safest. You choose the path that challenges you. That is human." He realized that each trial had been designed not to punish, but to teach, to reveal the qualities that made humans unique: creativity, adaptability, courage, and the ability to navigate uncertainty. "You understand something few in my hive can," the queen continued. "Your species does not rely on perfect coordination. You rely on thought, on perception, on innovation. That is why you are valuable." The queen guided him to a chamber where other humans from previous expeditions, captured and tested in secret, were displayed in stasis, their minds interfaced with the hive. Ethan felt a pang of fear. Had they failed? Were they lost to the hive forever? You see them, the Queen said, because your choices affect more than yourself. You represent your species. Every action, every decision is a signal. Humans are fragile, yet your strength lies in thought and will. Can you endure and can you inspire? He realized that the key was balance, cooperation without submission, adaptation without surrender. The Queen led him out, and the final part of the trial began, negotiation. Ethan was presented with Xeran leaders who challenged him with hypothetical crises, resource shortages, environmental disasters, and moral dilemmas. The answers were not simply right or wrong. They tested his judgment, creativity, and leadership. Ethan listened carefully, considered options, and proposed solutions that combined human ingenuity with Xeran logic. Some leaders were skeptical, some confused, but all were intrigued by his perspective. He realized that humans could influence even a hive mind if they thought differently enough. The Queen observed silently, her luminous form radiating approval. You see the world not only as it is, but as it could be. That is rare. That is why you are here. Each trial reinforced the same truth. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and capable of thinking beyond strict rules. That combination made them valuable, even to a species as powerful as the hive. When he returned to his chamber, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The Queen's question, once strange and personal, now seemed profound. It was not about companionship alone. It was about potential, about the possibility of creating something new, something that could bridge the gap between species. Ethan lay on the glowing surface, tired but alert. The trials had tested his body, his mind, and his resolve. He had proven himself, yet he knew the true challenges were only beginning. The hive had observed, the Queen had judged, and now the stage was set for what came next. Not survival alone, but influence. And somewhere in the palace, the alien Queen watched, her eyes fixed on him, waiting to see what he would do next. Ethan understood one undeniable fact. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and mysteries, but humans had something rare, a spark that even the most ordered species could not replicate. As he drifted toward a fitful sleep, Ethan felt a surge of confidence. He was small, fragile, and human. Yet in his mind burned the knowledge that creativity, courage, and adaptability could shape the future of interstellar relations. The trials had begun, and he had emerged not only intact but stronger, more aware, and ready for whatever awaited. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities. But Ethan Mercer, human and unpredictable, was ready to rise to each one. The next day, Ethan awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The trials had tested his mind, courage, and creativity, but today felt different. Today, it was not just about surviving or proving himself. Today, he had the chance to influence the hive itself. The Queen appeared in his chamber almost immediately. Her luminous form shimmered, radiating a quiet authority that made the air seem heavier. "Human," she said, her voice both melodic and commanding, "you have shown ingenuity, courage, and perseverance, but understanding is not enough. Now you must act. You must show that your species is not only clever, but also capable of guiding the future." That much was clear. He would face challenges no human had faced before, challenges that could alter the hive itself. They entered a large chamber that overlooked the hive's outer colonies. The Queen gestured toward a holographic display hovering in the center. Ethan could see vast networks of Xeran colonies, planets connected by shimmering energy streams and pulsating pathways. Some of the colonies showed signs of strain, small but notable imbalances in energy flow, resource allocation, and worker efficiency. "You see this," the Queen said. "A threat approaches. A rogue asteroid cluster moves toward our colonies. It will devastate many systems if not addressed. We have measures in place, but your species' ingenuity may be necessary." The asteroid cluster was enormous, shifting rapidly through space, and the Xeran's standard defense systems would not adapt quickly enough to prevent damage. But he noticed patterns in the energy streams and the colony's alignment. Using a combination of Xeran technology and human intuition, he began formulating a plan. "You propose a solution?" the Queen asked, her voice calm but expectant. Ethan nodded. "Yes, we can use their energy conduits to create a dynamic shield around the colonies. It requires precise timing and some improvisation, but it can redirect the asteroid's paths without damaging the colonies. I will allow you to act, but failure will be consequential. But it requires cooperation between your systems and human decision-making." The hive workers observed, some skeptical, some curious, but all participating in precise coordination. Minutes felt like hours. Ethan's mind raced, adjusting for the unpredictable movements of the asteroid cluster. Every decision mattered. A single miscalculation could destroy entire colonies. But he focused, trusting both his intuition and the human trait that the Queen had noted so often, adaptability. Slowly, the asteroid's paths began to shift. The colony's energy fields adjusted in real time, responding to Ethan's interventions. The Queen watched silently, her eyes glowing brighter as the plan unfolded. Ethan felt a thrill of cautious excitement. He was not only participating, he was leading, guiding a species far more powerful than humans through a crisis they could not fully predict. Finally, the last asteroid cleared the outer colonies, diverted safely into uninhabited space. The energy fields dissipated, returning the colonies to their normal operation. The hive vibrated in unison, a wave of acknowledgement, approval, and perhaps curiosity. The Queen turned to Ethan, her luminous eyes fixed on him. "You have done what few could. Your species demonstrates a unique combination: creativity, courage, and foresight. These traits are valuable. You are not only a participant, you are an agent of change. It is a recognition of potential. Your species is capable of forming alliances that strengthen not only itself but also others. You are remarkable." He was no longer just an observer. He was a symbol, a bridge between species. The day was far from over. The Queen led him to a strategy chamber where Ziran leaders gathered. They presented Ethan with simulations of crises, resource shortages, communication failures, and unexpected attacks from rogue entities. Each scenario required judgment, negotiation, and improvisation. Ethan listened carefully, analyzing each situation. Unlike the hive, humans were not limited by rigid patterns. They could consider multiple perspectives, take risks, and adapt in real time. He proposed solutions that combined human ingenuity with Ziran efficiency, and slowly the leaders began to respond, adjusting their actions to his guidance. It was a revelation. Humans could not match the hive in strength or numbers, but they could influence it, enhance it, and guide it in ways the Zirans had never considered. Ethan felt a surge of pride. His species was not inferior. In fact, in certain situations, humans were essential. By the evening, the trials had ended. Ethan was exhausted but exhilarated. He had proven more than his own abilities. He had demonstrated the value of humanity itself. The Queen observed him silently, her glow softening in a way that seemed almost approving. "You see the future differently," she said. "You understand adaptation, improvisation, and the limits of predictability. This is why you are important. Not for strength, but for vision. Tomorrow you will face another challenge, one that tests not only skill but influence. You must convince the hive itself that humans are not to be ignored. Are you prepared?" Humans had survived countless disasters on Earth through ingenuity and adaptability. Here, among a species far more powerful, those same traits had allowed him to save lives, solve impossible problems, and gain the Queen's attention. For the first time, he felt a sense of real agency. He was not just a visitor, a curiosity, or a captive. He was a participant in a story larger than himself, a story that could define the future of humanity and the galaxy. Outside his chamber, the hive continued its work. The colonies thrummed with energy, systems adjusted to the new conditions, and the Queen's presence radiated through the palace. Ethan knew the trials were not over, but he also knew this. Humans had something the Zirans could not replicate. Their strength lay not in numbers, not in synchronization, but in thought, courage, and creativity. And with that knowledge, Ethan drifted into sleep, ready to face whatever the Queen had planned next. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new challenges, and new opportunities. But Ethan Mercer, human and unpredictable, was prepared to rise to each one, confident in the power of humanity and the unique spark that set his species apart. Ethan woke with a sense of purpose. He had faced the Queen's tests, demonstrated human ingenuity, and influenced the hive in ways no other human or Ziran could have imagined. Yet today was different. This was no ordinary trial. The Queen had summoned him for a meeting that would determine not only his future, but the future of humanity in the galaxy. He followed her through the twisting, glowing corridors of the palace, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy. The hive workers moved aside silently, their synchronized forms pausing in acknowledgement. Ethan had noticed it before. The hive seemed to sense his growing significance. Today, he understood why. They arrived at a grand chamber at the heart of the palace. The queen stood before a large viewing platform overlooking the entire hive. Hundreds of thousands of Xerans moved in perfect coordination below, tending to tasks, repairing structures, and maintaining systems. Ethan could see their strength and efficiency, but he also saw the same limitations he had noticed from the beginning: their lack of creativity, their dependence on rigid order. The queen spoke first, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Ethan Mercer, human, you have proven remarkable. Your creativity, courage, and judgment have exceeded expectations. You have influenced the hive, guided our systems, and demonstrated the value of your species. Now a choice lies before you and before your kind. You may guide, teach, and act. Your species will be recognized not for strength alone, but for insight and vision. You will help shape the future of our civilization." To accept meant committing to a system far larger than Earth itself, surrendering some independence and trusting an alien species whose intentions were still partly unknown. "I understand," Ethan said slowly. "But what would this mean for Earth, for humanity as a whole?" "But they will also gain responsibility. They must act wisely, teach wisely, and guide wisely. Your species has shown potential to complement the hive, to add creativity where we cannot adapt. This is your gift. Use it well, and humanity will thrive among the stars." He could accept becoming a representative of humanity within the hive, helping shape decisions and strategies. Or he could decline, returning to Earth with knowledge and experience but without the opportunity to affect interstellar affairs directly. Both choices had weight, both carried risk. He thought of the trials he had faced. The labyrinths, the puzzles, the crises he had solved, they had tested more than skill. They had tested vision, morality, and judgment. He realized that humans had something rare in the galaxy: the ability to balance logic with creativity, caution with courage, and self-interest with the greater good. "I have a proposal," Ethan said finally. "Instead of humans becoming part of the hive in a way that might compromise our independence, we create a partnership. Humans and Xerans work together, not as masters and subjects, but as collaborators. We share knowledge, exchange strategies, and protect each other's interests. Humans retain agency, and the hive gains insight it cannot achieve alone. They would collaborate on joint missions, particularly those requiring creativity, adaptability, and independent judgment. Humans would retain the ability to report back to Earth, ensuring their interests were protected. The hive would gain access to human ingenuity, enhancing its efficiency and strategic flexibility. The structure is clear, fair, and balanced," Ethan concluded. "Humans gain knowledge without losing identity, and the hive gains insight without compromising order. Your species will be valued for qualities no other species possesses." The queen extended a luminous appendage toward him, a gesture of acknowledgement. "Ethan Mercer, human, you are a symbol of your species' potential. Your actions have changed perceptions. Your choices will guide not only humanity but also the hive. You have proven that intelligence and creativity are as powerful as numbers and strength." Over the next hours, Ethan began implementing the first steps of the partnership. He worked with Xeran leaders to establish protocols for communication, collaboration, and joint problem-solving. Humans were trained to understand Xeran systems, while Xerans learned to appreciate human adaptability and creativity. Small successes, improved resource management, quicker responses to minor crises, and innovative problem-solving proved the potential of this alliance. Ethan also sent messages back to Earth, sharing insights about the hive's culture, technology, and potential threats. Humanity would have knowledge of interstellar systems previously beyond imagination, allowing them to prepare, adapt, and thrive. The responsibility was immense, but Ethan felt ready. At night, he reflected on how far he had come. When he first stood before the queen, terrified and uncertain, he had only hoped to survive. Now he was a bridge between species, a symbol of human ingenuity and potential. He understood that humans were not weak, nor were they irrelevant in the galaxy. Their strength lay in unpredictability, creativity, and courage, the very traits the hive could not replicate. The queen appeared once more before him as he prepared to rest. "Tomorrow, your work continues," she said. "But tonight, reflect. Understand the value of what you have achieved. Humans are no longer merely observers. You are participants, collaborators, and guides. This is your gift." The stars that had once seemed distant and unreachable now felt within grasp. Humans were no longer insignificant observers in the cosmic order. They were recognized, respected, and valued. He realized that the journey had changed him. The fear that had once dominated his thoughts was replaced by confidence and purpose. Humans had something no other species possessed: the ability to see beyond patterns, to adapt, to imagine, and to act. That spark, fragile yet powerful, could shape the galaxy. Over the next weeks, Ethan continued to work closely with the Queen and the Hive. Joint missions were launched, integrating human strategy with Xeran precision. Disasters that would have devastated colonies were averted. Knowledge once hidden within the Hive was shared, analyzed, and improved upon through human insight. Ethan also trained others, humans selected for their creativity, courage, and adaptability, to work alongside Xerans. Each human learned to respect the Hive's discipline, while the Hive began to appreciate the value of unpredictability. Slowly, a new kind of cooperation took root, one that combined the strengths of both species while respecting the uniqueness of each. In quiet moments, Ethan reflected on how far he had come. From a frightened human left alone in an alien forest, he had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve. The Queen's initial question, "Are you single, human?" had been the beginning of a journey that proved humans were not weak, irrelevant, or subordinate. They were capable, courageous, and essential. The partnership forged that day was not just about survival or recognition. It was about possibility, the possibility that humans, with their creativity and courage, could shape the galaxy in ways that strength alone could not achieve. And Ethan Mercer, human and unpredictable, was at the center of that new future. As he looked out over the Hive, seeing the vast network of colonies pulsing with life, he understood something profound. The galaxy was no longer a distant, unknowable place. It was a space where humans could thrive, influence, and inspire. Their journey had only begun, but it would be guided by the very qualities that made them human. And with that knowledge, Ethan felt a sense of peace. The trials were over, the partnership established, and humanity's potential recognized. The future was uncertain, but in that uncertainty lay opportunity, and humans were uniquely equipped to seize it. For the first time since stepping onto that alien planet, Ethan smiled without fear. He had survived, adapted, and succeeded. He had shown that humans were not merely part of the galaxy, they were capable of shaping it. And somewhere in the glowing heart of the Hive, the alien Queen watched, her luminous eyes filled with quiet acknowledgement. The galaxy had changed, and humanity, through courage, ingenuity, and vision, had found its place among the stars. Ethan Mercer, human and unpredictable, had not only survived the Hive, he had proven the worth of his species. And that proof would echo across the cosmos, a testament to human creativity, courage, and indomitable spirit.